The following podcast contains graphic descriptions of international celebrating and global merrymaking. It may not be suitable for angry or unhappy audience members. Listener discretion is advised. You've been warned.
Have you ever seen any of those foreign films? I don't like them.
Some are born great, others achieve greatness, and some watch Christmas movies.
We are the wild and crazy guys.
Well, they're both festive, aren't they?
We are festive foreign film fans. Well, hey, Mark.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Things are good. Things are really good.
So, Mark, after our first show, Mary Ellen, she said, Bob, you didn't say what college Mark played football for. And the reason why this is appropriate is because it's Slippery Rock, and we can call you the Slippery Rock.
Actually, we were called the Rockets.
So you want me to call you the Rocket?
No.
So what do you think so far? How did it go? I've contributed to some podcasts, so I'm used to listening to my voice. But what do you think?
What a great experience. That was my first adventure into podcast land. Listened to a lot of them. Some of them you've recommended. Probably the number one thing that stood out was how fast it went.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to call you a friend and Marielle a friend. And I just think about how many times we go out and we have conversations with our friends and you're just talking and you're just going back and forth and you lose track of time. That's how I felt the first podcast went. And, it was a good experience.
I agree with you. And it helps to have a good movie. You know what I mean? Because I think that helps generate the conversation. And although, it gets a little, depending on the country, it can be a little bit more of a challenge. I mean, some of the customs from France we might be more familiar with. Where tonight we're going to travel to South Korea. So it's a different. And as you know, we switch off in terms of who presents the movies. So I gave you the South Korea movie.
And I appreciate that. It was a great movie.
Want to watch a Christmas movie?
Christmas movies are our bread and butter.
We eat Chinese food and watch Christmas movies.
I heard it's the best Christmas movie since Home Alone.
The movie we're reviewing is called The Tower. It is a South Korean film. In the movie, there some of the main characters. And also, let's go back to the disclosure Bob said in week one. We'll do our best with name pronunciations. But in the movie, there's probably four main characters. Sun Jae-yeon plays Seo Yeon-hee. She's the love interest in the tower. She is actually, believe it or not, she's actually scheduled to have her Hollywood debut in a movie called The Cross.
Wow. And
she's going to be starring opposite of Sam Worthington and Orlando Bloom. So Katy Perry's better watch out.
Yeah, exactly.
And this film is in production now, no release date. There's also Kim Sang-tong, whose character name is Lady Ho. He's the other half of the love interest, and we couldn't find any English films for him at all. And then there's, oh my gosh, the cutest little girl, Jo Min-ah. She plays Lee Hana. This is a very young little girl. She's the daughter of the main character, and she just steals your
heart. You took the word right out of my mouth. I was going to say she's you love her.
Oh my gosh. And then other characters in Po Cha. He plays President Joe. He's sort of the evil. He's the bad guy in this movie. I'm not giving away anything, but he is a big actor or big producer and director of movies. He's directed some movies that appeared in Sundance Film Festival called Soul Searching, and then the last person I would say is Sol Kong-gu, and he plays the captain in the movie. He is honest to goodness, I did a little research on him. He's been in all type of action films. He has a series of films that he acts in, that he's a repeating character. I wouldn't dub him exactly the Bruce Willis of Soul, but when you think about the genre and the movies he's been in, it certainly reminded me of Bruce Willis.
And you're right. You're right to call him out because he's kind of the heart of this movie.
In this film, right? There is certainly a love story. There's also humor in it, and there's a struggle for power and someone evaluating who is more important than others. And there's a certain amount of greed as well.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of different storylines that are going on at the same time. But let's talk about it a little bit, right? So the tower starts off where it's Christmas Eve, of course, because it's a Christmas movie. And there is a place called the Tower Sky. It's this ultra luxurious building complex, very futuristic. They want to have a white Christmas, even though the movie starts saying it's unseasonably warm, but they want to have a white Christmas for all their high-end tenants and guests, right? There's even some political figures that are the guests of or residents of this ultra luxurious building. Dae-ho, who is the manager of the building, and he's a single dad, great guy. Everybody loves him. Sort of dealing with being a widow. His daughter wants to spend time with him, and sort of talks about in the very beginning, you're kind of sad because the little girl who's maybe 8 or 9 years old is trying to tell her dad, Dad, there is no Santa, there is no white Christmas, and you're like, that's how the movie's starting.
I know.
That's horrible.
The bar is pretty low.
Yeah, click. But I struggled on. I went forward. I said, I'm going to believe that this is going to get better, and it does. But she wants to spend time with him, but unfortunately, he's got to attend to this big party that's happening. But sure enough, his girlfriend, or not yet girlfriend, his love interest, she decides that she can watch the child while he goes and attends to things for the party. And
the one thing you said, and I think it's important because it is an undercurrent that runs through the whole film, this class divide of the people that live in the building and how they behave and how they're treated versus everyone else. And so here you have the dad that has to work all day on Christmas, sacrifice the time he spend. His daughter has to actually come to work with him to spend time with him.
Yep. And then so while that's happening, that's one of the sort of the main storyline, right? The single dad wanting to spend time with daughter, dedicated to his work, has an interest in this beautiful woman who runs the kitchen, but he's devoted to his job. Other storyline that's happening in the very beginning is Young Ki. He's the captain of the fire squad. He's he's legendary. Everybody knows him. Everybody wants to meet him. But for the first time in his career, he promises his wife, I'm coming home on Christmas Eve. I'm going to be there. I'm going to spend time with you. All his coworkers, get out. You gotta, go spend time. We got this taken care of.
In fact, they want it almost desperately more than he does. You gotta go home and spend time with your wife.
Right. It's kind of their love for him.
Yeah.
Right. And then sort of the other storyline then is President Joe, who wants to put on this great party, and the party's in full swing, and there's this spectacular helicopter thing going on where they're flying around the buildings and they're dropping snow, right? And so,
well, wait, the one element to that is, remember, they want the helicopters to come, but the helicopters first say, no, the wind shear is really bad. We can't do it. And our owner of the building, President Joe, says, get the head on the phone, I want my helicopters.
Get the commissioner.
Yeah.
I want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anybody but the commissioner.
Yes.
And so through his power, through his influence, out comes these helicopters, and they're dropping the snow machines. The snow machines are hanging from the helicopters, and snow starts to fall, and everybody thinks it's great. But you're right. Then the updraft comes, right? We had the foreshadowing.
You're right.
Something's bad's going to happen when something's called the tower. And so updraft comes, and one helicopter, starts swaying back and forth, and then the helicopter crashes into the building, which then really sets off sort of the next hour and a half of the film. And so the helicopter crashes. Our captain, fire captain, right? The fire trucks are responding to the tower sky fire. And so he's standing in front of his locker, and he's not going to go, but he goes.
He's got to go.
Yeah,
it's the Sky Tower. You know what I mean? It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And so off he jumps onto the fire truck. Meanwhile, there's chaos back at Tower Sky, or at Tower Sky, and all of a sudden the dad is trying to find his daughter. He's on one floor, she's on another. They connect via cell phone, saying, "Hey, everything's okay," but there's chaos, right? The fire starts to spread. The fire trucks get on the scene.
Yeah, because the helicopter. The fuel on the helicopter it started a huge fire.
It started a huge fire, and so the fire trucks arrive, and then now the rest of the movie is how are they going to survive, right? How are they going to get people who are on the 80th floor? The other sub thing that we get foreshadowing to as well, Bob, as you mentioned, the updraft was also the shortcuts they took, right? Comes the greed part.
Oh, yes.
Right? They took shortcuts in the building of the structure. All the water lines that go up to the fire sprinkler system are on the outside of the building, and they're frozen.
They're all frozen. Yep.
And especially at the higher levels. Yep. And so the sprinklers don't work, and so now the firefighters get on the scene, and the commissioner of the fire is saying, "Hey, we're going to only save so many people. Right? We're going to minimize damages." And of course, our hero is not going to allow that to happen. So he and his team start going up
because they want to save the VIPs at the top of the building.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, the commissioners said, "Here's where you're going to go,
and you can sacrifice everybody else, but you got to get these people."
The fire captain gets to the main point of the fire. He's like, "We got to go to the main source. We got to extinguish that where the helicopter came in, where the fuel is." And so he heroically comes up with a plan how to do that. And it's like about what you're watching. You're not really watching your clock. And lo and behold, they extinguish the fire where the main source of it. And I'm like, this movie's over. Like, that was stressful. But then there's still a whole nother hour left in the movie. and it goes on to, and then more and more where there's all these other interactions, how they're saving these different, the little girl reunites with her dad and his love interest, and they're all back together, and you're like, okay, good. They're back together. They're going to be safe. But then they try to cross this glass tower, this glass bridge that connects to a different tower, and then they're walking across that, and something's happened. Again, I'm going to try to maybe not tell too much, but something happens where, guess what? The little girl's separated from her dad again. And the dad thinks the little girl may have died in that separation. So you kind of have this movie is up and down where you're like, oh, whew, they're good, they're safe. Then, oh man, they're not. And now more people are in danger.
Well, and it's one of those movies, in the last episode you talked about Game of Thrones, and in some ways it's kind of like that here where you're like, okay, which of these people that I like is going to die,
Exactly.
because they're not all going to make it out.
Exactly. Yeah. So so it kind of continues on where then really the two main, right, the two people who are the heroes, right, or the captain, Sol Jong-gu and the dad, Lee Do-ho, right? Those two come together, right? They're sort of probably built of the same fabric, right? Strong leaders, very devoted to others. Obviously, he's devoted to his daughter. But they come together and they're going to work together now, right? Because the fireman would typically say to the non-fire professional, "I have this, leave me alone." But he convinced him, like, "I need to be involved in this. That's my daughter we're trying to save." And slowly but surely, he starts to build get the confidence of the fire chief, and understands that they have to work together to ultimately save this. One part of the movie that was exciting, right? All of a sudden, after this tower being on a fire for an hour and a half, someone remembers that there is hundreds of gallons of water.
Oops.
Like, why didn't we think about this earlier? Up above, right? That are water reserves that are, feed the bathrooms and of the kitchens, right? And so they develop a way to get to that place, and then they blow that up, which helps extinguish all the flames, at least for the upper part of the tower. And so that, again, you get that instant relief. Oh, but guess what? The building, because of all the heat, is going to collapse.
It's a 9/11 moment.
It was.
It really was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that a little bit. It's sort of in the movie, right? Because there was a little bit of that, and it made me a little anxious, right?
Yeah,
because it was made after that tragic day, but the build up into the point, it didn't really hit me. But
once they got, then you're like, wow, and it became a real plot point because you understand that could happen when the heat. That's gonna
That's right, right. Up until that horrible day in 2001, I don't think any of us could.
No, it seemed far fetched, right? You wouldn't believe it.
Exactly, and so, but that becomes now. A lot of the fire is out. They still have people trapped, but now they're racing against the time of where the building's going to collapse. The owner of the building, the commissioner, talk about, well, to minimize damage, like, we should just blow it up and collapse it itself. Like, let's not even let the course of the building burning take care of it. We're going to collapse it. And so as more people are trapped, they're fighting against time to get people out, as well as trying to, they're going to blow the building. And so they're given a time frame. Here's what you need to do by when. And it kind of leads to a climatic ending, which I think is, I don't know if we should reveal it or not, but I would say, you built up to a big suspense point at that time.
And it's not for a Christmas film, it's not a traditional happy ending necessarily.
I think that's the right way to put it.
I mean, there are elements that actually I did get a bit emotional at the end of it, in a good way, but then there were some also not so happy ones.
There is, right? And I think I texted you like, "Hey, Bob, why did you make me watch this movie?"
I'm curled up in a fetal position.
But the movie, again, at the end, right, there certainly is some emotional moments, but then there's also it is not that happy ending. So
and that's why it makes it so unique with our rating, right? Because is it festive? Is this a Christmas movie?
This is a tough one for me, but I'm glad we're not doing like, let's rate it 1 to 10, because then you end up with 6.5, right. 7.3 quarters. I'm going to go to this one and say that this is not a Christmas movie, because I think if you remove the element of Christmas, and we're going to talk a little bit about the culture of Korea and about how they view Christmas, right? And so I'll hold that to a little bit later. But I would say this is not. Now here's how I would describe this movie. In my own unique way, like, it's almost like the Towering Inferno.
You expected to see O.J. Simpson come around a corner, didn't you?
The Towering Inferno marries a woman named Die Hard. They have a baby called Armageddon, who has a child and calls the child the Tower. because
I think that covers all the elements. I do.
I mean, when I watched it, it was like, oh, that reminds me of Towering Inferno, which is a movie
Yes.
out long.
That's why.
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson was in it. That's why I said that. Yes.
But it has that element, then has the Die Hard piece of it. You know, Yokomato Tower.
Even the blowing up the water.
The blowing up of the water.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, you know, the Armageddon. Now, I'll say this as a little bit hint, is there's the sense of Armageddon heroism that comes in the end of this movie that is very special. But it's but yeah, I'm gonna say no to Christmas movie. How about you? I know you're liberal on this issue, but
you know, and though I will admit, because I struggled with it because I love the Christmas elements. He's going to buy a Christmas cake for his wife. The captain is, or no. Yeah, it was the captain. Yeah. And he wants to buy a Christmas, you know, that there's the pastor and his group that he has that are in one of the apartments in the tower. So in the whole Christmas, the white, they want the snow, they have the hologram, which is amazing, singing the song. So, you know, I look at this again, it's a different kind of redemption story because it is typical in your disaster movies that you have greed and a way to overcome, to demonstrate all the pitfalls of being greedy and, you know, the commercialism and somehow I feel like wrapped up in Christmas, it made it more meaningful to me. Like in other movies, it seems more of a trope,
right? You
know what I mean? Like you have to put the bad guy in it. For some reason in this one, maybe because it was Christmas and in the environment, it made it more meaningful. So I'm leaning it's a Christmas.
You know, you're influencing my perspective a little bit too, because one of the other thing you remind me of is the little girl in the beginning, right, doesn't believe in Santa. Right. And at the end, she really identifies for her in her life who her Santa really is.
Exactly.
Right. And so, yeah, there is that element. And sort of the humor, the religious scene. I mean, there are some there's not many humorous things, but I would say when you watch this movie, if you watch this movie, the hallelujah scene in the pool just
but you've touched on where we sit on Christmas, but then feeling like, how does this make you feel? Because it was I kind of felt a little wrung out at the end. Like it keeps, to your point, you're like, whew, it's over now. Oh my gosh, it's not. There's another disaster around the corner and another one. And it's a relentless loop and it doesn't stop.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. So I would say anxious, right? Mm-hmm. At the end, I was anxious, the up and down, right? I still want to meet the person who didn't remember about the millions of gallons of water. Cause that person really does need to be fired. But yeah, I would say anxious. What about the future, Bob? Will you watch this again?
You know, I did watch it twice for the podcast. And I would say, you know, I may occasionally, you know, kind of like actually Die Hard, even though I believe Die Hard is a Christmas movie and I enjoy it. I think I love Bruce Willis's wisecracking and all that. It is not one I watch all the time. You know what I mean? I'll put it on probably every few years. And I might do the same with this, you know what I mean? Because once in a while you kind of want that, you know, action type film in a Christmas film because it's unusual. You don't often find that. So
I really want to say, but I really want to be stressed and wrung out.
Especially at Christmas time. Hey, let's wrap some presents and watch this.
But I don't know if I'll watch it again. I guess if I came over to your house for dinner, I'm free next Thursday, and you threw it on, I would watch it and like sort of point out things. So I would say I would probably not watch it again unless the circumstances were right.
And that Sig Sindu, would you recommend it to someone?
Yeah, I as a disaster film. Like I said, if you want something that does sort of have that heart pounding twists and turns, like you think, like I said, I'm not one when I watch a movie, unless it's really, really bad. Like when it's really bad, I'm walking at thing. Oh my gosh, it's like, when's this movie over? So I would say this about I never looked at my watch to say, is this movie over or not? But like at points in times, I thought the movie was over, only to say, oh, there's more disaster, which in a way is a good thing, right? And so I would tell somebody, you want a good, a different perspective on a disaster film, maybe watch this.
Yeah, even though I think it is a Christmas movie, I would never recommend it as a Christmas movie to watch. To your point, I'd recommend it as you want to see an interesting disaster film in Korea. And again, I think we think Hollywood films are the be all and end all. And what you find to watch these movies, they had tremendous special effects here.
Yep.
Like really good. And I don't think these were CGI. I think these were actual. So, and that's impressive that you can go, you know what? Get outside of your box, look at some different movies, and you'll find that they're really well done and they're really enjoyable.
I learned how to say Merry Christmas in Korean.
Let me hear it.
Well, I think I did anyway. Mele kusama.
This is just done phonetically. They tried to make it as phonetic. So yeah, it's mele kusama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, please, if I've said that incorrectly, someone can write in.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, it's interesting. Can we talk a little bit about some of the traditions that I learned? So I did some research and let's talk about North Korea first, right? I mean, this movie was made in South Korea. Obviously there's much more freedom, but in North Korea, Bob, they don't actually celebrate Christmas. They celebrate the birthday of someone very, very special.
Oh, who's that? Jesus?
No.
Okay.
It's the grandmother whose name is Kim Jong-suk, of the current leader in North Korea. But Christmas can't even be celebrated in publicly. So I'm sure there are secret celebrations of Christmas. If that's discovered, though, that could lead to their whole family being arrested, imprisoned, tortured, and possibly killed.
Oh my gosh!
And so Christmas is officially it's banned in North Korea.
So they're not hanging up their stockings.
And there's not even singing permitted. Well, there's no alcohol either. But in South Korea, though, a little bit different story, right? In South Korea, they have lighting festivals and holiday decor and Christmas events that are pretty spectacular. And it goes back to you said too about the graphics and stuff like that. That hologram scene in the beginning was amazing. But public places like department stores and malls have become Christmas themed spectacles every December. Most Koreans, though, live in apartments, right? So there's not a lot of single households, single household buildings in South Korea. So it's not really a tradition to decorate the whole house, right? Like so
it's more like public places versus. So they probably go places to see the decorations.
Yes, exactly, okay. Exactly right. And so you won't even find Christmas wreaths hanging on doors, right? So it's pretty much, let's go out of our building. Let's go to public places in South Korea and celebrate Christmas. Also, and Christmas is also a little bit different. When we think, if I said Christmas, who would you think about like if I said, Bob, how are you going to celebrate Christmas? Who are you going to celebrate it with?
Your family.
Your family. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In Korea, it's really more about lovers. And it's really more about, it's a couple's holiday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Boy, all the presents we could have saved. Or Santa could have saved. But couples dine out at fancy restaurants and share sweet treats. Hotels promote special romantic packages.
It's like Valentine's Day.
It's very much so. Yeah. And they even talked about love motels will book up for months and months of events. I think... Keep it clean. I think it's just more of like romantic packages that we see on Valentine's Day, right? For Christmas in Korea, you wouldn't be wrong to call it Valentine's Day, actually, plus Santa. So maybe Vanta or Valenta. But let's maybe talk about a song, a Christmas song.
Well, I've been excited about this because we love our K-pop.
This calls for some Christmas music.
Yes, this Christmas music.
What kind of Christmas music is that?
least you could do is play some Christmas music.
And now back to Christmas music.
The name of the group is called Twice, which, when I researched, I actually heard of them before.
Oh, really?
I did. And the name of their song is Merry and Happy. It's by the South Korean group called Twice from their Christmas album that's just released a couple years ago in 2017. Twice is one of the best-selling K-pop girl groups of all time, and their song is about Christmas with someone you love, right? Going back to the love theme than the family theme.
I should have figured that you knew who Twice was when you were dancing around the studio here to the song.
Well, I have a face for podcasts, but I got the moves for live
video
for live TV. But they have 9 female members, and they were formed on a television program. 9, and it's actually they got formed to perform on something we'd call The Voice or American Idol, right?
Yeah, yep.
So they I think the name of the program is called 16, and so they are touring the U.S. In the upcoming year, and so if you're looking in this, don't think twice. Buy some tickets.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was good it's kind of nice to get a poppy, they become these K-pop groups here in the States have become so popular, especially amongst young women. So it's kind of fun to hit a K-pop song, but
take a chance and you get to listen to it. So maybe we can ask you a question, Bob. Okay. If you couldn't celebrate Christmas in the U.S., where would you want to celebrate it?
Well, I talked about my visit to New Zealand, which was wonderful. But you know where I would go? I would go to London.
Interesting.
I know it seems like a cliche, but London, Dickens, chestnuts on the corner, the cobblestone street. I would just love to visit because I think in my mind, that's when I think about Christmas.
For me, I couldn't narrow it down to to one place. I had 2. One is I just think because of the reason for the season, I think I'd love to go to Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe go to midnight mass.
Yes.
Right? There's a church on the site where it was the alleged place of where Jesus was born, the manger. Through historical research, whether it's exactly 100% right or not, I don't care. But I'd love to go to midnight mass in Bethlehem someday.
That's a good one. I didn't even think of it. That's a great one.
And then the other place I'd go to, which is more season than the Christmas, but through a travel agent, I get stuff at home all the time. There is a 8-day tour of Christmas markets all over places in Switzerland and Germany. And
Mark, I booked that during the pandemic. It was booked and then the pandemic hit and we couldn't do it. We were going to go to the Christmas markets on the river boat.
There was
right?
there was a river.
Yes. So I never made it.
Why don't we wrap up with a quote?
Yeah.
Your quote last time was excellent. And so, keeping with the theme of Bethlehem, I chose a quote from Pope John the 23rd, and he said, "Mankind is great, an immense family. This is provided by what we feel in our hearts at Christmas. So, mankind is great, it is an immense family. This is provided by what we feel in our hearts at Christmas."
I love that.
Me too.
Mankind is an immense family.
Yep.
That's a perfect sentiment to end on.
It is.
Once again, Mark, thank you. I should say, though, I forgot to say this last time, we are going to develop our social media, but I have at least an email address for people if they want to email us. Now, it's an AOL address, so people are going to make fun of us being boomers and all this stuff, but I like AOL because it's 3 letters. That's all you got to. But we are festivefans@AOL.com. Send us your comments, send us and rate us. At some point, I know every podcast begs people to rate them and they say, rate us 5 stars. I just want you to rate us. That's all I care about. Rate the podcast. And again, you want to drop us a line, festivefans@aol.com.
Yeah, please give us feedback, right? We're excited to bring this to you, and we'd love to hear even suggestions you may have on films.
Yeah, no,
right?
that's exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because, I'd love to hear some.
Yep.
And especially places that we haven't talked about.
Right. We're going to get to all the countries.
Yeah.
All right, Bob. Thanks for having us. It was a great afternoon.
Actually, we're done. Done.
It's over. It's over.
It's over, kaput, finito.
It's over. It's over. Over.
This has been a Way Sound Studio production.
And sound engineering on our show is by Jake Fontana.